because there's a brand that reached out to me. They knew they wanted like a wholesale partner because they were, wholesaling products out to Costco. They're getting wholesale out of the blue. I was like, you know what? I'll do it for 15 grand up front.
What's up, guys? I'm here with Beau Crabill. And if you might know him from YouTube because he posts videos about how he sells on Amazon. And the way he sells is different from the way that I talk about on this channel and the way that I personally sell. So I do private label, and Beau, you do?
Wholesale. Essentially, that's what people call it. So.
Okay, so you do wholesale, and that's what we want to talk about today in this video. I'm doing this just honestly because I'm curious about it. And I wanted to ask you questions, and I wanted to get to know how you do what you do, and we get to share it with some people, so that's pretty cool. So I asked the question in my Facebook group saying something like, hey, I'm interviewing someone that does wholesale, which is something that we don't talk about, and I got a bunch of questions there. So I'll ask you some of these questions and some of my questions. And guys watching, if you want to ask your questions in the future for something like this, make sure to join the Facebook group. It's linked in the description below. But yeah, Beau, let's start by talking about your personal story, how you got to where you are now. And then maybe we'll get to ask you more details about the model. And then maybe we'll end it with some tips on what to do and what not to do and some mistakes that you see. And if we have time, maybe we'll do like a walkthrough product research or something.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So.
All right, perfect. All right, so who's Beau Crabill?
All right, so I guess for people watching, if you're in e-commerce, I guess the important thing to know, I kind of started my e-commerce journey in middle school. So I was kind of a little lucky enough to know how eBay works. My dad tried a bunch of different businesses and was doing like network marketing and tried to do a coffee stand, all these things. But something he was always doing on the side was like selling random collectibles onto eBay. So sometimes I would help him out and make some listings. So I kind of knew how to make a listing. Then fast forward, I get into middle school and I see all these kids wearing these Nike Elite socks. They're like $12 pairs of socks that were, you were the cool kid if you had them. You got a basketball hat on right now, and a lot of the basketball kids had them. So people, anyway, it was like a huge phase that was going on. So I took that opportunity and I would go up to my classmates and be like, hey, do you want these in red, or do you want them customized, or in blue, rainbow, whatever it may be? So I would take orders from kids. I would go to Joann's, which is a fabric store, and go to like Champs or Foot Locker and buy the socks, dyed in different colors, and flip them back to them for twice as much. I did that for a few months until the principal said, I was 12 at the time.
12, okay, cool.
Yeah, it was like 8th or 6th grade. Yeah, okay. 6th grade. But yeah, so then the principals said, Beau, you can't be collecting money on school grounds. I remember there's evil vice principal came over and said, Beau, come here. I'm like, what did I do? I didn't do anything wrong. She's like, we've seen you've been collecting some money. I'm like, all right, I'm not doing drugs or anything like that. But yeah, so I kind of had to stop from there. I remember I put up a Facebook page called like Nike Elite Socks, something like that. The page is still active today. I haven't logged into it in like 6 years. But then I started getting some sales there, but it wasn't like that much. And then I was like, wait a second, let me just try to put this onto eBay. So I put them onto eBay, and my best sellers were like literally just rainbow patterns. So practically it would be a sock. It would be a black sock and with like a white stripe that had like little patterns above it. And I would just like dye each little square a different color that ended up being a rainbow. And those were selling for like $36 for one pair. I was like, okay, this is interesting. But was doing pretty decent. And that kind of just opened up the idea for me, like there's money to be made by selling products online. Then I kind of got into like buying direct from China. So I saw another fad that happened of these like little kendamas. It was like a Japanese yo-yo toy that people play with. So I bought them, and I was kind of in a way private labeling onto eBay, and it did really well. Like I was just ranking for kendamas and crackle kendamas, things like that. But I didn't really, like at that time I was in 8th grade, or 14, something like that. I didn't really know what I was doing, but it was working out well. What year? I think it was 2013.
Okay.
Either 2013 or 2014. I graduated in 2017. So yeah. But yeah, so did that. And then fast forward a couple years later, or like a year and a half, there was a buddy of mine who his father was like selling on Amazon. He was buying like headphones and things like this, and he was essentially private labeling. He would buy from Alibaba, and it was working really well for him, especially back then that you could throw up anything. It was probably like either end of 2014 or 2015. And he was like, oh, I had no idea you could even sell on Amazon. Like I was doing pretty decent on eBay. At the time I started doing retail arbitrage. I was drop shipping a little bit. I was doing pretty much everything you could imagine from trying to sell things online. I remember like staying up to like 1 a.m. packaging up a bunch of stuff on eBay. But yeah, so then I kind of tried the Amazon thing. The condoms that I was doing well on eBay, I tried to put them onto Amazon, but I had no idea what I was doing. I'm pretty sure the listing was suppressed and I never even got one sale. I was like, okay, this Amazon thing's kind of stupid. I'm just going to go back to eBay just because I didn't there was no one out there to like teach or anything about it. There was no YouTube videos. It was very scarce information out there. There was like a couple like videos on like Kindles and things like that, or there's a lot of videos on retail arbitrage, but there wasn't really, I just didn't understand how it worked. It was right when like private label like kind of started on Amazon. But yeah, so that's how that started. I was like, all right, this Amazon thing is stupid. And then later I find out that, oh, you can actually just list products that you already have on. So anyway, this is kind of where I kind of start to get into wholesale. So I was doing retail arbitrage onto eBay and I was like, I wonder if you can do this onto Amazon. So I saw that, oh, there's like several listings that you can just kind of, in the private label space would be called hijacking. But since in the wholesale space, you're allowed to do that. And because there's tons of other sellers on one listing. So I did that. I remember I was selling a lot of, it's kind of funny, Nike socks. It wasn't the customized ones I was doing, but it was just like regular Nike socks from the outlet stores or like, Ross, things like that. And I was doing drop shipping at the same time. I was drop shipping anything you could imagine from like Walmart and Amazon. And then my account got suspended. I was like, all right. Right now I'm like, we're sophomore into high school, freshman or sophomore. I'm like, okay, I don't know how this Amazon thing works. And I remember when I got suspended, they told me it was because the products I was sourcing from, they could not tell if I was allowed to go source and things like that. So they had me send me over my invoices. And at the time I just had receipts. So I had receipts from Nike, receipts from Ross Dress for Less. And then I sent them back from the receipts and they're like, we don't accept these at all. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And they suspended my account. Account's still suspended today. So from there I was like, okay. And I remember they sent in the note that I need to have an invoice from a distributor. At the time, I didn't really understood what a distributor was. I grew up in like Seattle, Washington. So in Seattle, Washington, there's actually a lot of distributors I found out for like food and grocery and things like that. So I found a couple of like Oriental distributors that would sell like coconuts or like, produce and tropical fruits, things like that. And there were these like coconuts, which that was technically the first product I ended up selling on Amazon that I could just buy at wholesale and sell for more. But yeah, that's kind of how that started a little bit. And yeah, so that's kind of my main story, little bit how I got in Amazon.
So then from there you started going deep into wholesale, finding products.
Yeah. So from there I'm like, okay, wholesale works. At the time now I'm like a junior into high school, about to, become a senior. And at that same exact time, my junior year, I got really good into cross country and track. So that kind of ended up being my main focus because I was really passionate about it. I started running a lot of times that, landed me a bunch of attention from Division I schools. My junior year of high school, I ran a 422 mile and that kind of, a bunch of like schools started reaching out to me to like run. So I was like, okay, pretty much my goal from there is like, I want to be a professional runner. So that's what I focused on, put my business a little bit to the side. I still had some sales going on. But then as soon as I ran really good times my junior year, I made that decision like, okay, I'm gonna be a professional runner. So then I just like started researching what are professional runners doing? Like, what's the difference between my training and what I'm doing on a weekly basis or what I'm eating or how I'm sleeping, how I'm recovering compared to like professional runners. So I found out what they were doing and pretty much it was like, okay, they run a lot more. I was running probably like 30 to 40 miles a week, which I thought was a lot. Then I found out like any Division I runner, any professional runner is running like minimum 80 miles a week. So I said, okay, over the summer, I'm going to start running 80 miles a week. And that's what I did for quite some time. And I was in really good shape. Like it was kind of scary a little bit. I was really skinny, but I was like, all right, this is cool. I got a lot of, big plans and visions. But then 1 week before the season started, I go on a run where I always went. It was called the Chehalis Western Trail. It's just like a long, like 30-mile trail that just goes on forever. And like a few miles into it, I just felt like a little weird thing in the back of like my calf. And I was like, okay, this is weird. And runners get injured all the time. So like, okay, I'm just going to keep running. Doesn't matter. So now I'm kind of on adrenaline. So I don't really feel anything. And I finished the run, no issues. I drive back to my high school. And I get out of my car to go do like strides, which is just something people do after a run. And like, I can't even walk. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, something was really bad. Like my Achilles was like all like swollen and things like that. I was like, okay, let me try to walk it off. Didn't work. And I just went back home. Luckily, one of my really good friends, his dad was a foot doctor that lived like 4 minutes away from my house. So literally like at 10 o'clock at night, we go into the doctor's office and he like does this weird scanning thing. And it's like, there's just a bunch of inflation in the thing. Like, oh yeah, it's just a bunch of inflation. Looks like a lot of like over tearing, things like that. And then like I know that like next week I have a race, like the first race of the year. So he gives me like a steroid shot and like, it kind of helped a little bit for the day, but then it didn't really like, do much except just like cover the pain. And then, anyway, so long story short, I get injured. I'm out for the entire year. And from there, I just kind of focused just onto my business because I was like, there's nothing else I can do. Like practically all my life, energy, and time was just into running. And I, was a little sad and pretty depressed at the time. I remember like just eating a bunch of Ben and Jerry's like ice cream on my couch. Like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I have no idea when I'm going to get healthy. And I still had some packages I was like shipping out. So I was like, oh, wait. I was like driving to the post office. Like the only other thing that I'm pretty decent at is this whole like selling random junk online. So from there, I was like, all right, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to keep scaling my business, keep growing, make a lot more connections. And that's kind of where I just put a lot of time and focus into it. And then that was the beginning of the year. So that was like September, almost probably literally about 3 years ago from today. And then I get healthy towards the end of the year, like in May. So I'm able to like run again. The season's already done. I actually signed my track scholarship to Pepperdine University. It's a school in Malibu, California. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get healthy again and run again. So, but I'm still building my business and I still wanted to like do everything. So I get healthy, I'm running my business, things are taking off really well. At the same time, I started to actually get into YouTube because I saw there was a lot of people like preaching about like arbitrage and drop shipping. And I saw that like I got suspended that way. And I saw that it wasn't really a scalable, feasible model. So I was like, hey, there's a couple better routes out there. And I had no intentions to like coach anybody or like sell a course. And then people kept reaching out to me. I was like, oh yeah, this is interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of how I started the YouTube thing. But then, so then I get to school, get there before all the students get there because athletes do that. And like, I'm there for preseason training camp. I'm there for a few days and I'm like, it's impossible to do everything. Like I thought running 80 miles a week and running in high school was a lot, but then like Division I athlete, college is just ridiculous. It's like a full-time job and a half. I didn't even start school then. So I was like, okay, there's no way I can do running, school, and my business on the side. At the time, like my Amazon business was doing well. I was probably doing like 30 grand in gross sales a month, which was probably, netting 5 figures a month, which was like, I was happy about that. And I was like, I have to quit something. I either have to quit school or I have to quit my business. So I kind of just thought to myself, what am I going to regret more? Like in 4 years from now, which is that 4 years almost up, what am I going to regret more? And I was like, I can always run, later on in my life. So I kind of quit running in school. And it was not easy. I cried a bunch. It was definitely a moment I'm never going to forget, but it was definitely the right decision. So
you seem to be happy now, so that's good.
Yeah, so it's fine, I'm not in the best running shape anymore, but I don't run like crazy. But I think that's pretty much it. So that's how I'm here.
I want to talk about how your life is today and how your just day-to-day stuff, how it goes today. But let's first talk about Wholesale and how it works. So quick definitions before we get into that. So private label, which is what I do, is pretty much finding products or finding opportunities on Amazon and going to China or going to a supplier and sourcing a product and branding it or private labeling it and selling it as your own. Wholesale is different because from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're finding products that are already selling on Amazon, finding the suppliers selling that exact listing, and then somehow getting an account with them and then selling under that same listing. Is that right?
Yeah, I do wholesale a little different than other people, and I'll talk about that. But from the whole basics 101, that's what wholesale is you're selling things that are already selling on Amazon. And like how I explain is like private label, you make money on the sell. So like you make money ranking it, you make money like advertising it, like you obviously do a lot of product research, and like anyone can go find a low cost of inventory at private label, but it matters on how like units you can really sell and get the product ranked. In wholesale, you don't really make money off of like ranking it or things like that. You make money off of buying it at the right price. So you make money on the buy, essentially. Another thing that I do as well in wholesale, it's kind of the same thing, is I also get brands to pay me to help grow their business. So I kind of put a little private label skills to it, where like, let's say there's a brand that, you know, they don't want to sell to Amazon sellers, because sometimes Amazon sellers have a tendency to put the price down and just get into price wars, and it can be a headache. So sometimes I'll take them on as a client, grow their brand, get a percentage of sales, or buy from them at wholesale. So anyway, it's kind of those two routes: is you're either selling things that are already selling, or working with brands that already have some demand and getting them to pay you, or, you know, buy directly from that wholesale. So
yeah, I heard you talk about the second one actually, and that's where I was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to learn about that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of skills PL sellers could do right away, you know?
Right. Plus you add the skill of talking to people and connections and making deals, you know? So you create a listing for that second model? You create a listing and you rank it and all that stuff?
Yeah, so we don't go like extremely aggressive, like I would say some people may do in private label, because it's not like your own brand. But yeah, we'll make a listing for them. We'll do some launches, run their ads, and that's it. Sometimes it's probably like a quarter of the time they're like, okay, you just buy from wholesale. So then that's how we do it as well. But a lot of times it's like, you know, they want to sell themselves. So
okay. Do you know what percentage of your own business is each model?
The wholesale is more. The agency, I pretty much call it the agency, what I'm doing, has been growing pretty rapidly. It's probably about a third of the total, like whatever net income from it. It's kind of interesting because there's no expenses with it. So it's a lot faster to grow, because the one downside to wholesale is like you do need money to make money, and you're really limited on how much money you can make. Because with private label, like someone could start with like 10 grand or whatever it may be, and could make thousands of dollars a month, tens of thousands, or like really grow up and scale. With wholesale, like if you want to make 10 grand a month, you probably need at least 50 grand worth of inventory on every single, you know, going basis. But yeah.
Okay. So which would you say is more easier to start for a beginner, the agency or the wholesale side?
For beginner, I would definitely say to like get sales is probably the wholesale route. Because it does take some skills you need to learn, like how to like launch products and things like that on the agency. But definitely like, I mean, it's not rocket science at all wholesale. It's like, you just literally got to find some suppliers, which could be annoying to do. You have to talk to some people, but after that, it's like the whole entire process is you get the ASIN, you go to inventory, it add a product, you send it to FBA and it sells. You don't got to do anything to it.
Right.
So.
Okay, so let's get into the process of this model. How do you find opportunities? Do you look for products or do you look for suppliers?
Yeah, so a lot of people try to look for products. I don't really recommend that. What I do and what I teach people to do as well is find suppliers first. So there's a lot of ways you can find suppliers. Trade shows used to be a good way to do it, but because of COVID, no one really goes to trade shows anymore. You can Google some online, but it doesn't always work the best. There's a lot of forums out there that have like sites that are just for like distributors and wholesalers that you can create accounts with. Some people will try to sell like a list of suppliers. That's always usually like a big red flag, and I would advise people not to do that. But yeah, so it'd be finding the distributors first and try to really create a relationship with them, because like in wholesale, most of our business is done with a few suppliers, and the deals that they're sending us is not stuff they have public on their website or that they're sending out to everybody, just because they know that we're going to buy it right away. So like if you're going to do wholesale, like you find a supplier first and just try to create a relationship with them, make some small orders right away. They'll try to give you some like decent, okay orders that are a few $100, and then keep ordering those until you're like, hey, like you've done some business with them, and start to like get more better deals with them. Some people do try to go directly to brands, be like, hey, please, can I buy from you? That's very hard to do. It's very challenging to do. And I see a lot of people in the wholesale space do that. And it's really funny because that's what I do in the agency, but I get people to pay me for it. A lot of people go to like brands and are like, please, can I buy from you at wholesale? And they're like, you're going to have to contact like 100+ brands for that even to happen. And then, okay, you're going to be making like 10%, margin on your inventory if it does happen. So it's
okay. So what are the typical margins for wholesale?
Around 20% is where you want to be at. So, well, So people in wholesale go off of ROI instead of margin. So 20% ROI could maybe be like 10% margin. So if someone puts $1,000 in the inventory, you should be aiming to take that 1,000 and turn it to 1,200. If that makes sense.
Right. So it's not that easy to scale, is it?
Yeah, it's pretty much you got to put more money into it. Some people try to go get financing and funding to scale it, but if people are looking to make a couple $100, and you got some cash left over, it could be good just to kind of get your feet wet with it.
Okay. What's the long-term plan with a model like this? Is it just to make quick money, or can you flip it somehow?
So not a lot of people exit their type of business with this. I'll tell kind of like my personal plan with it all is to kind of keep buying Amazon brands. So I bought a couple brands that are on Amazon. So it's not really like, it's pretty much buying a listing, right? Because there's like, I bought a brand for about 17 grand. They're making $2,000 a month. I bought them a few months ago and already pretty close to getting my money back from it. So that's kind of in my plan is the long-term with that is just continue to like keep using the cash from my Amazon business and acquire and get brands like that. So, cause it's kind of the same thing a little bit where you're, not doing anything. The product's already ranked. It's already doing well. And then, there's some brands that have no idea what you're doing or have no idea what they're doing. And they, you can negotiate with them and get a pretty good deal. Some people I've seen, they try to exit their wholesale business. It's possible if you have like exclusive agreements with some brands or suppliers. That's the thing that some people do. Like I know I have a buddy of mine who has a clothing business that they just buy. They have like 2 SKUs that have their own private label clothing, but it didn't really work out. But the rest of their SKUs is just buying directly from brands or distributors at wholesale and selling it for more in clothing. And they're trying to sell their business for like 2 million right now. I don't know if it's going to sell, but some people have some luck. You definitely cannot sell it as a high of a multiple as private label because there's definitely, anyone can kind of also buy wholesale, but yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get into the agency side because my audience is private label sellers and I feel like they'd relate to it. But first, the wholesale side, if I was very interested and today I want to start, where do I start? I can't go outside and go to trade shows. I can't meet people. It's Corona time. Where do I start?
Yeah. It's funny. Before I got on YouTube, there wasn't that much content, but now there's like a good amount of content on YouTube about wholesale. So like, I would say start on like YouTube, start to educate yourself there. There's a few like decent wholesale courses out there. Like I have one, I have a book about it. But yeah, I would start there and just understand like the main thing that you're going to be doing and kind of ask yourself if you want to be doing it is like going to be communicating with vendors, suppliers, distributors, and trying to create a relationship with them. That's kind of the main model for wholesale on that. So, and yeah, I would start on YouTube, educate yourself, kind of go from there.
What are some software that you use for this model?
I have a software myself. It's called Supplier Scout. There's a couple softwares you need for wholesale. One is called Keepa. It practically just gives you the history of all the stuff on Amazon. Just so like, let's say you want to go sell a product and last month it was at $15 and now it's at 20. Well, okay, it might go back down to 15. So that's kind of the Keepa. You just want to look at the history. And then my software, there's a few other competitive suppliers out there or competitive softwares out there. I definitely have a biased opinion, but I say mine's a lot better. And from the actual stats, we're a lot faster. But one way that people get products in wholesale is they get a spreadsheet. So either a CSV file, Google Sheets, Excel, and it has just a long list of products. So it would just be like their prices and the UPC codes. And let's say a toy supplier sends them like 3,000 different products. They could manually go through those and see what's the best ones on Amazon. Or you can upload them into a software. I have a software, Supplier Scout, that you can upload into it. And then within minutes, it's going to show you based on the filters you put in. So you can say, hey, I only want to see products that have a BSR of under 30,000 and are making at least $4 in ROI of XYZ. And then it's going to tell you what are the best products from there. So now instead of looking at 9,000 products, you're looking at like a few hundred that are profitable, and then you go order from your supplier. Those are really the only softwares you need in the wholesale space. Some people use a couple of softwares to like check on competitors' stock. Keepa now has it as well, but yeah, that's really it.
Is there like a pricing software?
Yeah, so Amazon has their own repricing software. There's a few other ones out there that people like. But yeah, I mean, a repricing software is definitely important when you start to get over quite a few more SKUs. Amazon changed because in Amazon, you're trying to win the buy box. Amazon updated the buy box algorithm a few months ago, or it was in July, so not a few months, 2 months. So now it's like some people definitely need a repricer. So that's also another tool that.
Okay. So in case people don't know, because you're selling under someone else's listing, there's probably someone else also selling as well, right? So you're competing with other sellers for the same product and the same listing, right?
Yeah. So if you get on a listing, it's very possible there could be 5, 10, 15 plus sellers. I try not to go onto a listing that has more than 20 unless it's like extremely fast seller. Most sellers don't know what they're doing because either they're like doing arbitrage or drop shipping. So a lot of drop ship sellers, I see they're selling at a way higher price, and they're never gonna get like the share of the buy box. And drop ship sellers, they're doing FBM. So if you're doing FBM, it's way harder to get the buy box. You have to be at a lower price. So yeah, pretty much anyone who's not doing FBA is not gonna get the buy box, and you have to be right around the buy box price. So if there's like, I don't know, 10 sellers on a listing, odds are there's probably only like 3 or 4 that are actually getting the sales.
Yeah, and getting the buy box basically means that if you're adding the product to cart and there's a bunch of sellers, only one of them is going to actually get the sale. And that depends on if you're FBA or not. FBA gets priority. And if it's the lowest price or not, obviously lowest price gets priority. So if there's 10 sellers, they're sharing the buy box and it's a rotation, right?
Yeah, so it rotates, and whoever's like got the best offer. So if people have the same exact offer, it's usually going to rotate evenly.
Okay. All right. So the first step sounds like it's you find a supplier and then they send you a big list of products that they have that they can offer to you. And then you go through that list using either software or not. And then you choose whatever you want to buy and then you send it to Amazon and you wait to get your share of the buy box to sell, right?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay. So you don't do any PPC, right?
No PPC, no.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. So if people want to learn more about this, what's your channel called?
It's just my name, Beau Crabill. So you can go to youtube.com/Beau Crabill, BeauCrabill.
Okay. And realistically, if I were to start today, what would the timeline be like in terms of making profit and keeping money in my pocket? Because I know I'm going to have to reinvest a lot, right?
Yeah. So usually takes people about like 1 to 2 months to like finally find like a good first supplier. It depends on how much like effort you put into it. Like if you spend 2 weeks nonstop just trying to call up and contact suppliers, you'll probably find something. You're gonna need to get a reseller's permit. So long story short, whenever you buy a product at wholesale, if you have a reseller's permit, you're not paying sales tax on those goods. And then when you sell it to Amazon sellers, or not sellers, when you sell it to people, customers, then you can collect the sales tax, remit to the state, and you pretty much you have to have it for be able to go buy from suppliers. You don't need it to have an Amazon account, obviously, but you need it to be able to go buy from suppliers. So
okay, so I'm sure you've been asked this before, but why would you advise people to go with wholesale over private label?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you're a little bit, I mean,
I'm assuming that's your choice, choosing wholesale over private label.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So for me, right, like when because I have quite a few friends that do very well in the private label space, and I've seen them go through, and obviously they did a lot more riskier markets. They're getting to like, pretty high end stuff. But people are spending like tens of thousands of dollars to try to rank for stuff and they get nothing. So with wholesale, yes, there's less upside potentially, but it's a little harder, I believe, to lose money with it. Now, obviously, if you don't you can definitely learn well on private label. Have a low risker or a little less risk. But yeah, I would say if you're someone who's starting and you're like, I just want to kind of get my feet wet, or if you're like, maybe you've tried private label and it's like you didn't really understand the concepts of ranking or launching, or you keep burning money through PPC and you can't make a really good listing, you can't get reviews, then maybe try to go with wholesale if you still want to get inside Amazon, because you can consistently keep profiting as long as you don't mess up and buy the wrong products. Because there's a lot less variables with wholesale. Pretty much the variables, what they are is what you bought the product at. And pretty much if you mess that up, then you're not going to make money. If you get that right, pretty much everything else will follow and you'll profit. Because you got to just look at in the past, what were products selling for, and just make sure you're not buying at the wrong price. And that's really it. And you obviously have to sell it and go from there. So.
You have to wait for the sale in a
I'm
sense.
gonna turn my AC on because it's real hot in here. So it's starting to sweat up the storm. But yeah, sorry to interrupt.
What was I gonna say? You have to wait for the sale. Yeah, so it sounds like it's pretty simple. Why isn't it more popular than private label? Why isn't everyone doing this?
Yeah, I think there's more people doing it now. That's for sure. But they're not as big as private label. I don't know. I just see a lot of people, like when they start a business, they just think they need to start a brand. And that's kind of the biggest thing that I try to like teach a little bit is like, you know what, most brands fail, you know, believe it or not. Amazon's a little different because you're not really creating a brand. You're more, well, some people are, but you're more just kind of getting the, you know, ranking space in Amazon. So I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of people just think to make money, you need to, you know, start a brand from scratch. For me, I don't build any brands except I guess my personal brand, but either buying from brands at wholesale, getting brands to pay me, or just then end up buying out brands that are already selling. So,
okay. Let's talk about getting brands to pay you. How does that work?
Yes. So this is something I actually used to do for free. And it's funny because there's a couple people who are, you know, decent in the wholesale space, what people really call wholesale. And they use like, there's people who just taught about this is what wholesale is, that practically you go to brands and you just beg for them. They don't say begging, but you practically just keep calling up brands to try to buy from that wholesale. And like, I tried that a little bit and I realized it's not the greatest model. And it's like a lot of these brands are just like not that intelligent, they're not that smart, and they like don't understand how Amazon works. And they're like, no, we're fine. We're just gonna, you know, this stuff. Or you find brands that are open to it, but now they're like not getting any sales on Amazon because they just have no idea what they're doing. So
and when you say brands, like what's an example? How big is it? And is it a tiny brand? Is it something that we all know about?
Yeah, usually small brands. Like not gonna be working with like massive brands. So in wholesale, it's good to sell big name brand products. Like, you know, I sell a lot of Hasbro, Mattel, Samsung, Sony video games all day long, just because there's a lot of distributors for that. But if you're gonna get a brand to pay you, it's not gonna be Sony. I've had some really big brands, a couple of Ty Lopez's brands. They're a client of mine, but those are definitely counter examples. But if you're gonna get brands to pay you in the agency route, it's gonna be a smaller, like mom and pop, you know, size brand that maybe they're in brick and mortar, like in grocery stores, things like that. Like I work with a few brands that are into Whole Foods, and a couple of grocery stores, which are still relatively like smaller brands. Well, Whole Foods is a big brand, but a lot of the brands that they have there are smaller. But yeah, so definitely smaller, like, you know, usually the brands I work with, it's like a family business or like they're the CEO, founder and everything. So kind of things like that.
So how do you find these brands? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So long story short, you know, I was doing it kind of for free a little bit just to work with them. But I realized a lot of brands are not the most intelligent. Like they don't know how, well, I wouldn't say intelligent, but like they created a good brand. They have demand. They're doing well in brick and mortar, but brick and mortar and even direct to consumer, like on your website is totally different than Amazon. Like a lot of people don't know how Amazon works, except people who are in private label or who are selling on Amazon, who they understand, you know, launching, ranking, things like that. So after just talking to a bunch of these brands, there was one I was like, you know what? Because there's a brand that reached out to me, and you know, they knew they wanted like a wholesale partner because they were, you know, wholesaling products out to Costco. They're getting wholesale, and they, you know, knew of me, so they were, you know, reach out to see if we could buy them wholesale. And I was like, interesting. So I saw the brand. I was like, this is interesting. And I actually just out of the blue, I was like, you know what? I'll do it for 15 grand up front. So like $5,000 a month for 3 months. And then after that, I'm going to work on, because they had no listings. They had a couple listings on Amazon. They had like a few customer service employees like working with it, but they had like a couple listings, but like 100 or something on their website. I'm like, this is going to be a lot of work and too much time. So it's like $5,000 a month. We're going to work on launching your best products for 3 months. After the 3 months, then we'll be the wholesale partner. Then what I actually found out from that is I did that, got them a lot of results. They didn't make the full 15K back in 90 days. It was close though. Like they took off really well. And then we did a wholesale order and it was really funny. So there's a few products that they had that was not possible to buy at wholesale because they were like customizable and they had to get shipped out from their warehouse. So we bought from that wholesale a pretty decent order and we started selling and they reached out like, Beau, why are the sales down? Because I made an agreement with them that I'll get a percentage of their sales on the things that we're helping. And they're like, Beau, why are our sales down? I was like, because I sent you 20 grand the other day for your inventory. I'm selling in my account now. He's like, oh, interesting. And and I realized that actually the amount I was getting a percentage on the other products, I was making more off of those than what I was doing buying at wholesale. So I just called him up. I was like, how about we do this? You guys sell all of it, but we just get a percentage on all the products going forward. And that was kind of the birth, I guess I would say, of my agency. That I networked a few other people who have, pretty successful Amazon agencies. And it's not really something that a lot of people are doing. I would say there's not a lot of Amazon agencies out there. I've taught this a little bit, not very much. There was a brand that had like 300,000 followers on Instagram. Who knows, they could have been fake, but they told me that every single day they get pitched something. It could be like email copywriter, salespeople, could be ad agency, all this stuff. And I contacted them about, practically being their Amazon marketing agency. And they're like, no one has ever told us that, but we're interested. And it was like the first thing I ever said yes to. So a lot of brands need it because, they're running a bunch of ads on Facebook or Google and they're getting sales on their site. They have an email list, like they're making money on their site or in brick and mortar, but they're missing the huge thing of Amazon, which there's some brands I've worked with. And actually, for example, one of Ty Lopez's brands is a client of mine, and one of their brands is getting searched 400,000 times a month. And it's like, Ty, you guys need to get on Amazon. You're losing a bunch of money. So anyway, that's kind of how the agency started. And for brands, they really need it because they know what they're doing on Amazon. And I think it's definitely kind of a pretty decent opportunity where, people do it right. There's a lot of money to be made with it. So.
I mean, it makes sense. It's a product that's already selling and that has demand, and then it's not on Amazon, and they don't know how to do all the steps of Amazon that are needed. So my audience would probably know how to do that. How can they go and find a brand and convince them to set them up on Amazon?
Yeah, so there's a few strategies to do it. I just came out with a course about Amazon marketing agency. I haven't really publicly came out with it. We just have some students in there. But a couple things I go over is how to find Shopify brands. So I find that some of the best clients are usually brands that are spending a good amount of money on the Shopify. There's actually websites like Alexa.com that you can see how much people are spending money and things like that and find them. But I would say the best things to do is try to find some brands that maybe you're already working with, smaller ones that you bought from, ones that are maybe in your local hometown, or try to find some that are Shopify if you get hit with ads, things like that. That's just kind of a good way to start. I've seen people actually be kind of successful at running ads on Google and Facebook to try to get clients like that. But yeah, and then once you get a few, today, pretty much all my clients come through referrals. Right now I'm not taking on any more brands, but now it's okay, this random home decor brand has, this hot sauce brand, and they have more and more and more. So yeah, you really just want to focus on getting the first couple clients. Then you'll realize pretty quickly, you might just need referrals. It may not be for everybody. The referrals happen quite a bit, but yeah. So.
Yeah. And do you check on Amazon if there's demand, or do you just sell any product?
Yeah. So I'm obviously not going to take a brand that I'm already working with. So let's say I'm working with a eye supplement brand. I'm not going to work with 2 eye supplement brands. But yeah, we check the market to see if it's worthwhile. There was a testosterone supplement company that wanted me to work with them. And I'm okay, you're getting into practically the most saturated market possible. We're probably we can try to get you to page 1. It's going to take a lot of money, but it's not worth it. So a little bit, yeah. I would also say with the agency route, how it's a little different from private label is what I've noticed is a lot of these brands carry a lot of weight when they get on Amazon because, a lot of people are maybe searching for their brand online, and when they see it on Amazon, it just helps it convert a little better because it's they're a lot more different. Because I think an issue that a lot of private label sellers, if they're getting into really saturated markets, a reason why it may not work for them is because, yeah, they may have done 1 or 2 things different on their listing, but a lot of the brands that I work with, the one thing they've done really right with is the product development and the brand development. It somehow worked for them in their store or online. So I've noticed quite a bit that they kind of rank a little easier, and especially on PPC, their cost of advertising is a little lower than just let's say I'm going to work with, an eye supplement brand. I could start one from scratch on private label, or I'm working with this doctor who has a proven product and have a proven brand. it's going to help a little easier. So I forgot where I was going with that, but
it makes sense because we sort of look for opportunities that make money when I feel like those brands look for products that solve a problem more than an opportunity that makes money. The private label. Does that make sense?
So yeah, exactly. So like they have an opportunity, or private label's looking for like the markets, and then they're looking for like, they're finding products that their customers need. And the thing that I think private label sellers don't probably do enough of is making a really solid, product that people actually need and what their customers want, which, it's definitely quality products. But it definitely carries well over when they get on Amazon, because like, oh wow, this is
different. I'm getting sick of private label because of that, and that's why I'm excited by what you're saying.
Yeah, that's why I think like a lot of PL sellers, it's like, it's interesting. So like I know some buddies. I have a buddy of mine that's like my neighbor, and he's trying to sell his brand right now for like over 10 million. And he can't even launch products right now. Like he has a #1 bestseller in an extremely competitive category. And like, he doesn't even bother even launching products anymore, just because it's like so many more people getting into it. So
yeah, it makes sense. Let's finish by talking about Amazon automation and your opinion on that. And then we'll talk about, I don't know, something else later. So yeah, what is Amazon automation and what's your opinion? I've seen a lot of these ads, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen them as well. And let's get some honest opinion.
Well, from a person who also sells like info products and services, I know why you're seeing a bunch of ads for them, because they're very profitable on that side. But yeah, so Amazon automation, it's now coming in several different forms. It's practically, to sum it up, my definition is you're paying some people tens of thousands, 30, usually around 20 to 40 grand to have a done for you automated business. One thing that I've learned, I'm still young, but I'd say I've had a lot of experience in business in, a short time.
How old are you?
I'm 22 now.
22?
Yeah.
I thought you were like,
I just turned 22.
Wow, happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. But something I've learned is that no one's going to care more about your business than yourself. And it just happens all the time. I was talking to a buddy of mine. He has a pretty decent keto brand on Amazon. And he actually partnered with like 2 really smart people in the Amazon space. And he gave them a percentage of his business without having them paying anything for it. It's like, okay, that's mistake #1 that he made. But 2 really smart guys that have done massive in the Amazon space, he partnered with them, and then it didn't work out well. It actually went worse. And like, I think the reason why is because, okay, well, these 2 guys are making money in other avenues in their own business. And yes, they may say that they care about your business, and they may try probably honestly their best possible. They may ethically try to do their most, but at the end of the day, subconsciously, they're going to care more about their own business. So there's a lot of reasons why it's wrong with Amazon automation. Most people are doing Amazon automation in the wholesale and drop shipping space. First off, drop shipping is against the terms and service. How these people do it, they do it where you're drop shipping from Walmart. I got suspended on that in like 2014, 2015 on Amazon. So if I got it suspended a long time ago, it's not going to fly today. People are trying to do in a wholesale, like Kevin David, who, I don't have the best opinion of that guy. He's doing automation for wholesale pretty much with like another guy, the Seth Kniep guy. He's doing automation for private label. He also had a fake screenshot on his landing page. I don't think anyone noticed it, but practically, because Amazon changed the you can't see the daily stuff anymore, but in the screenshot it was the daily, weekly, or the 30 days, and on I think it was the 3rd one, there's like a small gray fainted line on the like underneath all the numbers, and one of them was like cut off a little bit. So like all 4 of the lines or 3 out of the 4 lines were normal, and one was cut off a little bit. I'm like, okay, someone forgot to know how to fake their screenshots. But anyway, so long story short, I think it's a bowl of crap. You're probably not going to make your money. Maybe some people do, but the odds are if these people take in $5-10 million, they're not going to be able to produce more than that for their clients. So just because for them, it's like a lot of them say, oh, it's because you can't have multiple Amazon accounts. That's what people say in the wholesale and drop shipping space. I know how to go buy Amazon accounts very quickly for like $2 grand. So if anyone is saying that's their excuse, it's probably because they don't know what they're doing in Amazon. And I think it's just marketers who are trying to get as much money as possible, and I'm saying this from a person who does sell courses, and I put a lot of effort and time into making quality courses, is the ad cost for selling courses now is higher. So people are less profitable trying to sell courses. I've spent a lot of money on Google ads and Facebook ads, and I can see that directly. So people are pivoting to try extremely high ticket services, because if someone is selling something for 30, 40 grand, it's like, okay, you can throw 10 grand into ad or like YouTube ads and you're going to get a bunch of people and like somebody's going to buy. So it's like, I think a lot of them, it's because they're marketers and their strategies for marketing no longer work. They're not profitable. And they're like, oh crap, I don't know anything else. I don't know how to actually build an Amazon business. So yeah, I think that's my opinion. I think it's BS. I don't think anyone should buy into it. A lot of these people are not, or they're either using fake testimonials or old testimonials like Kevin David. All of his testimonials are from his course, which, maybe those worked out well. The Stephen Mayer guy, their business is like down now. They're not in business anymore. They had a few fake testimonials, but anyway, I could go on about it. It's a bunch of BS.
I would think it might make sense that if you have connections with a bunch of suppliers, you could share that and then get some products to other people and automate it for them. Because if the only problem is finding suppliers, and if you know all the supply or like a lot of suppliers, maybe that works. But I guess it's too good to be true, maybe.
It would work for a very small amount of people. Okay. It's not going to work for 100 people. It's not going to work for 50 people. I've done the numbers. Like, I could maybe see myself doing it for like 3 people, honestly. That's it. Like, I've talked to Watch My Amazon Larry. He's like, yeah, this doesn't even make sense. And like, even if I was going to do it for 3 to 4 people, like, it doesn't even make sense. I would still do it to, myself. So it's, yeah. And that's coming from somebody like in the video game space for Wholesale, I'm doing a couple $1 million a year. And I know other suppliers and like, there's no way I could take on, and because all these people have hundreds of clients that they're doing with, like it just doesn't make any sense. Like with Valiant Consultants, I was doing the numbers. They literally needed to be doing like $10 million a month for their clients. I'm like, okay, I don't think they can go do that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Let's end it by talking about how your day-to-day life is, and if someone were to get into this business, what they should expect on the day-to-day, especially with Wholesale.
Yeah. So with Wholesale, I used to be a one-man show. Practically all of 2017, 2018, I was a one-man show and doing very well. And that was the first time ever, like it was in mid 2018 that I actually got burnt out a little bit. Never in my life I've ever felt like, oh crap, I feel like I'm just like, this is stupid. So that's when I realized like, there's definitely a lot more to business. I would say I, wasn't really doing anything except just running my business all day long. I wasn't even exercising, things like that. But I mean, I think if someone wants to start a business, not enough people probably persevere enough. People, whenever there's like a small object that just, makes it a little harder for them, they just quit right away. But anyway, yeah. So long story short, my day-to-day now is like, I have a team that does most of the stuff now, luckily. But now it's more like I'm a little more focused on my agency now, just because it's something I've been doing well for a good amount of time, but it's still, I'm working in the daily of all that. So anyway, like my daily today is not too much on the actual ins and outs. Like I have 2 people, I used to have more, we kind of lowered expenses a little bit, but 2 people that are full-time researching products. So I came to a point, and actually it's been about a year and like 3 months, and I have like my main employee that's like doing really well. Is we got to the point where we had enough money to go buy the inventory that we needed to. We had enough suppliers, but we didn't have enough time in the day to actually research the products. So that, if you ever get to that point, that's like, okay, go hire somebody else for it. I'm trying to think what I was doing myself. I was probably spending like 4 hours a day just researching products and finding the right things to go buy from my suppliers and communicating with them. So if you want to run a pretty full-time business, it's probably at least 4 hours a day. But it depends what you want to do. If you just want to make a couple $100 a month, then you could probably get away with doing an hour a day. But yeah.
All right. So guys, if you have any questions for Beau or for myself, let us know in the comments below. We'll try to answer them in the video. And if you want me to interview Beau again or ask him a specific question, please let me know. If you don't mind, we'll do this again sometime. And if people want to
you on my channel, so
yeah, if people want to ask you a question, where should they reach you?
YouTube is good, or my Facebook group.
What's your Facebook?
You can maybe just type in like Beau Crabill and go to groups on Facebook, or online retail. You can type that in or whatever, maybe. Or my YouTube channel has all the links to my social media, so I've checked that out. But yeah, so my website's also beaucrabill.com. So if you want to check out any books or courses, things like that, you can go there. But anyway, thanks for having me on. I definitely want to have you on my channel. I thought that a lot of private label sellers would be interested in the whole agency model just because like you have most of the skills already, and just kind of another income stream that some people can add on.
Yeah. If I someday get into it, I'll definitely document it on this channel. So if you guys want to see that, make sure to subscribe. And if you like this video, hit the thumbs up and go check out Beau on his website, his YouTube, and his Facebook. And thank you guys for watching. Beau, thank you so much for joining us and answering the questions. And we'll see you guys again soon.